The sky above Kentucky hung heavy with ash and memory. Lieutenant Eli Mercer crouched beneath the fractured bones of what used to be a steel highway sign. The green metal still bore the faded letters, I-65 South, Louisville. He eyed the crumbling concrete and the collapsed skeletal bridge above. To someone like Threxer, the alien general who led the Empire's advance, this was a graveyard. But to Eli, this was sacred ground. "Anything in the museum?" Eli asked, tapping his comm. Static crackled before a voice responded. "Nothing new," came the reply from Sergeant Kalea Torres. "Just more shattered glass and melted circuitry. Whatever the Zenthari didn't blast, time finished off." Eli sighed. They needed more than hope and hollow nostalgia. Their last encounter with the Empire's scouting party had cost them 3 fighters. And the Empire had tech that practically thought for itself. "Check the lower vaults," Eli ordered. "And check them carefully. That place was a pre-war arsenal display. If we're lucky, there's something the scanners missed." 10 minutes later, Kalea's voice came back, quieter this time. "Sir, you're gonna want to see this." Eli made his way down into the museum's cracked foundation. The air was thick, stinking of oil and rot. In a side vault lit only by his shoulder lamp, Kalea stood next to a massive, dust-caked machine mounted on an aged steel frame. It had 6 rotating barrels and belt-fed ammo guides. "You found a relic," Eli breathed. He stepped closer, brushing away cobwebs. "A Gatling gun. Mark 7, if I'm not mistaken. Designed for perimeter defense during the Martian riots." Kalea looked skeptical. "It's dead weight. Even if it works, we don't have the ammo." Eli knelt and opened a side panel. "It's fusion-linked. Hybrid system, mechanical with solar recharge. They built these things to last centuries." His fingers traced worn labels. He smirked. "She's angry." "Just sleeping." Another voice joined them. Captain Rami Okoye leaned into the room, wiping grit from his hands. "We need something more than angry metal, Lieutenant. Empire troops are 2 days out. And they're bringing heavy walkers." "Exactly why we need this," Eli said. "Because when they laugh at us, and they will, this thing is going to sing." Kalea raised an eyebrow. "You think a rotary gun from 200 years ago is gonna turn the tide?" "No," Eli said flatly. "I think it'll remind them we were never soft." By nightfall, the Resistance's main outpost, an underground bunker built beneath a shattered sports arena, buzzed with motion. Engineers worked under low light, stripping down power cells from old drone chassis and scavenged fusion cores. Eli had them wired into the Gatling's ancient inputs. "I need pressure-stabilized mounts," he told Rami. "If this thing fires at full speed without dampeners, it'll tear itself off the ground." "You need ammo first," Rami replied, tossing a crate onto the workbench. "Found old kinetic rounds in a derailed munitions train east of here. Rusted to hell, but we can reforge the casings." Eli grinned. "Then we're in business." That night, he stood alone with the weapon. It sat there like a caged beast, barrel still and heavy. His fingers hovered over the ignition switch. When he finally pressed it, the gun shuddered. The barrels began a slow, mechanical spin. Dust lifted from the floor. Lights flickered. There was no mistaking the low, angry whine. It was waking up. Meanwhile, aboard the hovering command ship Cyrex Dominion, Lord Commander Threxer Valuin reviewed the reconnaissance footage. "What am I looking at?" he asked. His aide, a slim, bird-like Zenthari lieutenant, tapped the projection. "A human settlement, primitive infrastructure. They appear to be reactivating obsolete ballistic machinery." Threxer raised a brow. "Primitive?" he scoffed. "Let them have their toys. Bring fire and precision. End this." His voice was cold, assured. "Crush their hilltop ruins. Erase whatever fantasy they've built around their metal fossils." Back on Earth, Eli sat with Kalea, Rami, and the rest of the leadership team in the bunker's dim war room. "We won't survive a head-on charge," Kalea said. "We won't try to," Eli responded. "We'll channel them. The museum ruins form a natural bottleneck. We'll use debris and buried charges to force them through a kill zone. And right at the end of that zone. The Gatling, Rami said. Eli nodded. They expect light arms. Plasma resistance. Instead, we give them raw kinetic fury. Kalea leaned forward, curious despite herself. What's the fire rate on that thing again? 6,000 rounds per minute, Eli replied. And every one of them sings the gospel of old Earth. Silence followed. Then Rami laughed, short and sharp. Well, he said, if we're going down, I wouldn't mind going down with that song in my ears. Dawn came gray and without promise. In the hills, resistance fighters dug in behind barricades of crushed steel and scavenged ceramic plates. In the clearing ahead, the Gatling gun waited, cleaned, mounted, powered. It didn't look ancient now. It looked ready. Eli stood beside it, helmet tucked under his arm. He scanned the far ridgeline with binoculars. A glint of polished armor. Then another. Soon the horizon shimmered with movement, rows of Zenthari shock troopers advancing with robotic precision. Kalea's voice crackled in his ear. Contact! They're moving into the kill zone! Eli breathed out. Let them come, he said. They brought lasers. His hand rested on the activation panel. We brought thunder. Eli's breath fogged the cracked visor of his helmet as he scanned the dry morning air. The Zenthari had paused just beyond the ruined overpass. Their forward unit stood like statues, tall, lean figures in segmented armor that shimmered with alien alloys. Behind them, walkers stomped into position, bracing for a clean sweep. They weren't just advancing. They were announcing themselves. Typical Empire, Eli muttered. Make a show before a slaughter. Kalea's voice cut through the comms. We're patched in. Charges buried. When you call it, we start the funnel. Hold until I give the mark. Rami was crouched next to him, cradling an old scout drone rigged for short-range pulses. They're setting up a signal tower, he said. Probably jamming comms once they commit. Let them, Eli said. Won't stop what's coming. The Gatling gun loomed behind them, its steel bulk humming gently. Ammunition belts fed from reinforced crates, glowing faintly with repurposed energy. The crew, 5 resistance techs and 2 loaders, stood ready. No speeches. Just nods. Back at the bunker, engineers worked without sleep, rewiring energy inverters and syncing the gun's rotation algorithm to a manual override. They didn't know if the fusion core would hold after sustained fire, but no one spoke out aloud. Eli's plan was razor-thin, a gamble with no fallback. Yet no one flinched. You hear it yet? One of the younger techs asked, pointing to the canyon mic relays. Feel it, said another, tapping her chest. Like thunder coming back home. Hours earlier, before the Empire made visual contact, Eli had walked the kill zone alone. The ruins were deceptive. Twisted girders and crumbling statues hid reinforced traps, trip mines, razor snare lines, and homemade magnetic grenades. The terrain was uneven, laced with scorched soil and broken glass, a funnel designed to herd a sophisticated enemy into the narrowest section of the valley. A place where speed meant nothing and armor turned into coffins. He'd paused at the gun's final firing line and placed his palm on its flank. You've slept long enough, he whispered. Let's wake the stars. Now, as Threxer's forces shifted forward, the atmosphere changed. Drones zipped overhead. Empire soldiers moved with eerie synchronicity. No orders shouted. No chants or tribal calls. Just programmed efficiency. From behind the ridgeline, Threxer surveyed the field through augmented vision. His eyes narrowed on the rusted cannon embedded in the terrain. That? He said, almost laughing. They've mounted a relic? His aide bowed slightly. Old human ballistic weapon. Centuries out of date. Unshielded. Inaccurate. Curious choice, Threxer said. Record it. I want footage of their defeat, especially the moment that thing jams and explodes in their faces. He raised his arm, fingers spread. Advance. Eli watched as the Zenthari moved into the trap. He waited. No, he said. A distant boom cracked through the canyon. Then another. Shrapnel-filled charges went off under the enemy's flanks. 2 walkers stumbled, one collapsing sideways into its kin. Dust billowed, choking their line of sight. Funnels are holding, Kalea called. They're coming through single file. The Gatling crew locked positions. Eli mounted the firing rig. The barrel began to rotate, slow at first. A deep, mechanical groan filled the air like a growling beast disturbed in its den. The first Zenthari stepped into range, helmet polished, armor gleaming, weapon charged. Eli pulled the trigger. The gun erupted. The sound was unreal, deafening, primal, rapid-fire death. Rounds tore the air apart. The first soldier vanished in a mist of blood and pulverized plating. The second had half a moment to register impact before his torso disintegrated. Dozens behind them surged forward, and were cut down like wheat in a cyclone. The Gatling spun faster, roaring louder. Its barrels glowed red. Every fifth round was a tracer, painting arcs of incandescent fury. "Reload!" shouted one of the loaders. Shells clanked. The crew worked like cogs in a living machine. Still the enemy came. Still they fell. On the ridge, Threxer stared at his feed in disbelief. His elite squad, veterans of 17 campaigns, were being turned to vapor by a gun? "Why aren't the shields holding?" he barked. His aide blinked. "Their rounds are too dense. Pure kinetic. Designed to punch, not burn. The energy shields disperse plasma. These rounds ignore the field and break the armor underneath. Primitive brutality," Threxer whispered. "Effective but fleeting." He signaled a change in formation. "Deploy flankers. Destroy their support. Overwhelm with numbers." But the narrow canyon allowed no side movement. And the Gatling had no cooldown. Resistance fighters cheered, but Eli's focus never wavered. His eyes tracked movement, adjusted angles, swept left to right. The gun wasn't just weaponry, it was memory. It was what humanity used when diplomacy failed and extinction loomed. "They laughed at this," he said to Rami, who was hauling a crate of spare barrels. "They're not laughing now," Rami panted. "How long can we keep it up?" "As long as we have ammo. As long as they keep walking forward." Another wave emerged through the smoke. "Then keep firing," Eli said. The barrels screamed. By dusk, the canyon was filled with wreckage, twisted alien metal, collapsed soldiers, smoldering walker husks. The last charge of Zenthari troops broke before they reached the firing line. They fled. And the Gatling fell silent. Steam hissed from the barrel casing. The crew slumped beside it, soot-covered and numb. One of the loaders vomited from the stench. Rami leaned back against the canyon wall and let out a shaky laugh. "I think you just made history," he said. Eli wiped his face and stared at the horizon. "No," he murmured. "We reminded them of it." From his distant command perch, Threxer watched the retreat. He didn't speak. He simply closed the feed, lips drawn tight. He had underestimated Earth. And Earth had answered, not with whispers, but with thunder. The silence didn't last. Barely an hour after the last Zenthari squad retreated into the smoke, the Earth began to vibrate again, this time not from footfalls, but engines. Big ones. "Movement incoming," Kalea reported from the lookout ridge. "Northwest sector. They're rolling in heavy walkers. 7 units. 3 artillery class. Empire's not retreating, they're escalating." Eli adjusted the scope of his field glass, peering through the settling dusk. Above the tree-line, silhouettes emerged, massive quadrupeds, their bodies plated in obsidian armor, limbs humming with energy. Imperial war machines. Designed to flatten bunkers and disintegrate armored convoys. "They're sending the juggernauts," Rami said quietly. "Same models they used to level Shanghai." Eli didn't respond immediately. He was watching the middle walker. Its cannon wasn't charged yet, but its pace told him everything. This wasn't revenge. This was extermination. "We don't hold them here," he said finally. "There's no tomorrow. Inside the command tunnel, the atmosphere shifted from adrenaline to grim focus. Every hand worked with speed but no panic. Ammunition was checked. Charges realigned. No one asked for backup, they knew there was none. We hit them with a fresh trap, Kalea proposed. Lure them into the lower ridge. I can remote ignite the slope charges, bring part of the cliff down. It'll slow the heavies at least. Do it, Eli nodded. Rami, refocus the Gatling. We'll remount higher, from bunker tier 4. Elevation gives us angle, and that line's still reinforced. What about range? Rami asked. It'll reach. Gravity does the rest. By nightfall, the resistance had moved into position. The new firing point overlooked the narrowing gorge, its edges jagged and steep. Below, Empire walkers advanced slowly, methodically, scanning for traps. Infantry flanked their path, ghost-like under thermal cloaks. Eli stood beside the newly mounted Gatling. Its frame still bore heat from the last engagement. His gloves stuck slightly to the barrel housing. We're not going to win a war, he said to no one in particular. But we might win this moment. Behind him, a young fighter named Mace adjusted the gun's stabilizers. He couldn't have been older than 19. Never thought I'd fire something that old, Mace muttered. It's older than your entire bloodline, Rami said, walking up with a final ammo belt. Eli gave a small smirk. And it's still got fight in it. Suddenly, a sharp tone pulsed through their comms. Cliff charges live, Kalea said. On your mark. The first walker reached the ridge bend. Its sensor mass twitched. Before it could adjust, Eli gave the word. Detonate. A boom split the night. The ridge face buckled, and half a mountain collapsed. Dust shot skyward. Massive boulders crushed the lead walker, caving in its side armor. A shockwave rippled through the line behind it. 2 more staggered. Infantry scattered in panic. One alien trooper wasn't quick enough. His silhouette vanished under a falling slab. Clean hit, Kalea breathed. 3 walkers stalled. 2 slowed. But one, it's still coming. That one was different. It moved with chilling precision, undeterred by the chaos. Twin cannons mounted on its shoulders glowed with pulsing blue charge. It was a command-class unit, likely piloted by a direct proxy of Threxer. Hit it now, Eli said. Mace didn't hesitate. The Gatling spun. The night cracked open again. Rounds streamed in torrents, glowing with heat, smashing into the walker's front armor. Sparks danced. The machine staggered, once, twice, but it kept advancing. Then its side burst open. A fuel conduit ruptured. Flames erupted from the wound. The walker turned, shielding its flank, trying to stabilize. Keep firing, Eli barked. The Gatling didn't stop. More rounds poured into the breach. Metal peeled back like fruit skin. Inside, something flared, then detonated. A fireball engulfed the top half of the walker. It sank to its knees, then crashed forward in a heap, its remaining systems whining into silence. A roar rose from the bunker below. Fighters cheered. Not out of joy, out of raw disbelief. But the victory was short-lived. More Zenthari troops began pushing forward, using the smoldering wrecks for cover. Plasma bolts arced through the air. The resistance scrambled into hardened firing points. Kalea's voice cut through again. They've breached the ridge path. I'm falling back to Tier 3. Understood, Eli responded. They're desperate now. That means they're close to cracking. Hold. Rami was beside him, rifle slung, sweat clinging to his jawline. Gatling's overheating. Core's running hot. How long? Rami checked the meter. 3 more full belts. After that, it'll fry itself. Then we make those belts count. The next 10 minutes were chaos. Eli worked the Gatling with precision, sweeping arcs across incoming lines. Empire soldiers dropped by the dozen, unable to react fast enough. Their energy shields, effective against plasma, failed against raw tungsten slugs. But they adapted. They began leapfrogging behind drones, sacrificing hardware to close the gap. One made it within 15 meters, too close. A resistance fighter tackled the alien and jammed a blade through its neck. "Reload!" Mace shouted. Another belt fed in. A plasma bolt exploded against the wall behind Eli. He felt the heat graze his leg. "They're climbing! Pull back to secondary nest!" Eli ordered. The team grabbed the rig's key components and slid down the fallback trench. The Gatling was mobile only in parts, but they had drilled for this. Within 5 minutes, it was mounted again, this time lower, angled across the valley mouth. And the Empire didn't stop. They charged, no longer precise, just furious. Roars filled the air. Overhead, Empire assault drones spiraled down like wasps. Eli turned, teeth clenched. Now. The final belts fed in. The Gatling screamed once more. The scene became fire and noise. Flesh and armor disintegrated together. The gun was no longer a weapon, it was defiance incarnate. A declaration that Earth, though cracked and scarred, was still lethal. The last of the walkers tried to retreat. Its back turned just as the final rounds slammed into its engine core. It vanished in an explosion so violent the hillside shook. Then silence. The barrel glowed orange. The gun finally died, spent, smoldering, and victorious. Rami dropped beside Eli, panting. "Is it over?" Eli scanned the field. Smoke drifted. Bodies, alien and human, littered the earth. "No," he said. "But we survived. And for now, that was enough." The stars above Kentucky blinked behind drifting smoke. The battlefield lay still, for now. Craters smoldered, and shattered armor glinted in the moonlight like jagged mirrors. But there was no cheer. No relief. Just breathless waiting. Inside the fallback trench, Eli paced. "The main force is regrouping," Kalea reported, checking drone feeds on her cracked console. "They've dropped in new infantry pods, thousands, maybe more." Eli looked up. "Any walkers?" "None left. We buried them. But this wave is different. They're not precise. They're throwing bodies. They're testing us," Rami said. "Seeing if we have anything left." Eli leaned against the wall, staring at the half-melted Gatling gun. The barrel was warped. The power core was fried. Smoke still curled from its housing. It had done its job, brilliantly, but it was finished. "What about the second one?" Mace asked hesitantly. Everyone turned. Eli's eyes narrowed. "There's no second gun." Mace shook his head. "In the vault. There was a prototype in pieces, looked bigger, heavier. We left it because it had no barrel housing." Kalea stood. "If we can salvage parts from the fried rig." "No time," Rami cut in. "They'll be on us before sunrise." Eli didn't move. His fingers tapped against his sidearm. "You said it's heavier?" he asked. "Yeah," Mace said. "Hydraulic mount, full recoil anchors, belt fed like the first one. Looked like someone tried to mount it on a mech frame." Eli's eyes lit with something close to madness. "We don't mount it," he said. "We become it." The command center burst into motion. The broken Gatling was stripped in minutes. Cooling lines, the reinforced feed motor, the core bracing, all yanked and hauled into the engineering bay. The prototype, pulled from the vault and still coated in dust, was unlike anything they'd seen. 10 barrels, wider bore, heavier casing. It was designed for sustained suppression fire, meant to be vehicle-mounted on a battlefield Earth never got to fight. "Hook it into my frame," Eli ordered, stepping toward the reinforced exosuit storage. Kalea looked stunned. "You'll be crushed. That rig was built for stabilization, not mobility. I'm not running anywhere. You won't survive the recoil. I won't need to." The suit was an old mining exoframe, retrofitted for combat in the early days of the rebellion. Thick plating, slow joints, but nearly indestructible. They welded the prototype directly to its right side. A backup core powered the rotation. Ammunition belts were coiled like a serpent across Eli's back, fed from twin packs strapped across his waist. Rami stood in front of him, face grim. You won't be able to retreat. Once you go in, you're in it. Eli slid his helmet on. It clicked into place with a hiss. Wasn't planning to come back. Mace handed him a trigger grip, hardwired to his palm. You sure about this? Eli looked at the battlefield beyond the trench. I've never been more sure. The ground rumbled. Zenthari infantry swept across the lower ridge, chanting in metallic tones, weapons primed. Drones zipped overhead, scanning for resistance. The Empire had stopped sending messages. Now they only sent death. From the edge of the trench, Eli emerged, silent, towering in the exosuit, the massive Gatling mounted like a cannon from myth. The first Zenthari saw him, and hesitated. That second of confusion cost them everything. Eli pulled the trigger. The weapon roared. Not in bursts. Not in rattles. It screamed like thunder unbroken. Barrels spun at a blur, heat blooming instantly. The rounds flew in walls, ripping through alien flesh, armor, air. The recoil shook the earth, but the suit held. Zenthari troops collapsed in waves, their front lines shredded before they could react. Those behind tried to scatter. Eli advanced. The suit's servos groaned, but he pressed forward, boots carving deep gouges into the ground. The guns spat fury. The air shimmered with kinetic heat. The ground behind him became a trail of discarded casings and smoke. A drone banked toward him. He shot it from the sky mid-arc. Another soldier raised a plasma rifle, too slow. A stream of fire ripped through his chest. From the cliffs, Kalea and Rami watched, stunned. He's pushing them back, Rami said, voice thin. Kalea was shaking her head, not in disbelief, but awe. He is the weapon. Zenthari units scrambled, abandoning formation. The entire lower line disintegrated under the barrage. One elite officer tried flanking. Eli swiveled the gun mid-stride and erased him in a blur of flashing rounds. The ground cracked beneath the Gatling's fury. Steam hissed from the barrels. The suit's cooling vents screamed. Warning lights lit the inside of Eli's helmet like a festival. Systems were failing. He didn't stop. He couldn't. Each step was agony. The suit groaned. The ammo counters ticked down. He had maybe 60 seconds left. And then, he reached the ridge. The Empire's last line stood before him, stunned. Eli planted his feet, raised the cannon, and unleashed everything. The last bulb fed through. The final surge of rounds turned the ridgeline into hell. Zenthari screamed. Their lines broke. Some turned to run, others froze in place. Then click. Silence. The barrels spun dry. Smoke hissed from Eli's back. The exoframe's knees buckled. The metal groaned. He dropped to one knee. But the field was clear. He looked up, visor cracked. Beyond the ridge, the remaining Zenthari ships lifted off. Retreating. They had seen enough. They knew what Earth still held. Later, Kalea and Rami pulled Eli from the wreck of the suit. His breathing was shallow. Armor scorched. Hands burned. But he was alive. You mad bastard, Kalea whispered. You really did it. Eli's lips barely moved. They needed to hear us roar. Dawn crept in slowly, painting the battlefield in shades of gray and blood orange. Smoke still hung low, curling through the jagged remnants of war. The land, once forgotten ruins, now held the scars of defiance. Shattered armor lay across the ridge like fallen monuments, weapons scattered, useless, alien forms burned black into the soil. No more gunfire. No more rumbling walkers. Just wind. And silence. Inside the makeshift med bay carved from the lower bunker, Eli lay strapped to a table, half conscious, his breath shallow. Burned gel glistened on his arms. Tubes ran from his veins. His chest rose with effort, his face slack under bandages. He shouldn't be alive, the medic whispered. He shouldn't have one either, Kalea replied, arms folded, eyes fixed on him. But here we are. Rami stood in the doorway, silent for a while. Then, they've pulled out. Kalea turned. You sure? Scouts confirm it. Last dropships left orbit 30 minutes ago. The Empire's gone. She looked back at Eli. Not because they lost resources. Not because they ran out of troops. No, Rami said. Because they finally got scared. By midday, the resistance gathered what remained. 47 fighters stood where 200 had once trained. Some limped. Some didn't speak. But they were alive. And something had changed in their eyes. Not just survival, but belief. They had stood against a galactic power. And the enemy had flinched. Kalea addressed them from the ridge, where the wreck of the exosuit still stood like a steel corpse. Behind her, the sun finally pierced through the smoke. They came thinking we were broken. That we were relics clinging to rust and myths, she said. They saw our silence and thought it meant fear. She pointed to the valley below. But what they heard was a warning. That night Eli woke. His eyelids fluttered, then opened with a slow, painful effort. The ceiling above him was stained, cracked, but familiar. Earth-made. His throat was dry as ash. Water, he rasped. The medic leaned in, nodding quickly. A straw touched his lips. He drank. Just enough to swallow. Kalea appeared a moment later, stepping into view. She looked worn down, hair tied back, eyes rimmed red from exhaustion. But she smiled. You came back, she said softly. I didn't go far, Eli murmured, voice hoarse. You died for 6 seconds. Not long enough. She sat beside him. You burned the core out of the gun. Fried the exo's spine. You know that, right? He nodded slowly. Wasn't meant to last. She leaned closer. But the Empire pulled out. Every last ship. They left us. Eli stared at the ceiling, blinking slowly. Good. We'll rebuild. People are coming out of hiding already. We're hearing chatter from the European zones, some of the orbital colonies too. They heard what happened here. A pause. They heard the roar. A week later, Eli stood on the ridge again. The medics warned against it, but he wouldn't be talked down. A cane in one hand, his side still taped tight, he climbed the slope and looked over the battlefield that had tried to kill him. The Gatling gun, what was left of it, had been moved to the bunker courtyard. Not as a weapon, but as a symbol. Cleaned, mounted upright, it faced the horizon. A plaque beneath it simply read, "Let them hear us." Rami approached, tossing a rock between his hands. Ceremonies tonight, he said. New broadcast towers ready. We'll be streaming to half the system. Eli nodded. Say what needs to be said. Loud. You want the mic? Eli shook his head. They don't need to see me. Rami looked at him for a moment. You sure? I didn't win this. We did. Let the world see the fight, not the face. That night, across Earth and the remaining colonies, the broadcast went live. Kalea stood before the mounted Gatling, the sky behind her still streaked from orbital fire. She didn't speak with grandeur, just truth. You were told Earth had nothing left. That we'd been crushed. That we had forgotten how to resist. She stepped aside, revealing the weapon behind her. But when they came, we answered. A slow zoom on the plaque. Let this remind every world, every empire, never mistake silence for surrender. Far away, in the core of the Zentari Empire, Lord Commander Threxer stood alone in his chamber. A holoscreen flickered in front of him, playing fragments of Earth's broadcast. No sound. Just the image of the mounted weapon and the words etched beneath. He watched it again. And again. One of his aides entered quietly, pausing when he saw what was playing. My lord, the aide said carefully. The High Council requests an update on Earth's situation. Threxer didn't turn. Tell them Earth is no longer a fringe concern. And the resistance? Threxer finally faced him, eyes dark. Tell them humanity is no longer resisting. A pause. They're remembering. Back on Earth, Eli sat in the shadow of the mounted Gatling as the ceremony wound down. The crowd thinned, music played low in the distance, the sky finally clear. He exhaled. Not in relief, but in peace. The Empire had fled. Victory wasn't final, but it was real. And for once, the silence didn't feel empty. It felt earned. He looked at the gun beside him, scarred, burned, but still upright. "I told you they'd hear us," he whispered. And above, the stars didn't blink. They listened.